August 14, 1958. A 23-year-old soldier races from an army base in Texas to a Memphis hospital. His mother, the only person who truly understood him, is dying. And Elvis Presley is about to lose the one thing fame can't protect. Gladys and Elvis against the world. If you grew up poor in the South during the Depression, you understood something about survival. You understood that sometimes all you had was family. And in the Presley household in Tupelo, Mississippi, that bond ran deeper than most. Gladys Love Presley gave birth to twin boys on January 8, 1935. Jesse Garin was stillborn. Elvis Aaron survived. From that moment forward, Gladys poured all her love, all her fear, all her protection into that one surviving child. She'd lost one son. She would not lose another. Elvis and Gladys had a connection that people who knew them said was almost supernatural. They had nicknames for each other. Satinin was hers for him. Baby talk that stuck. They could communicate without words. When one hurt, the other felt it. In the tiny shotgun houses they lived in during Elvis's childhood, when money was so tight that meals were uncertain, Gladys would go without food to make sure Elvis ate. She'd walk him to school, pick him up, keep him close. She worried constantly about him getting hurt, getting sick, getting into trouble. When Elvis got his first guitar at age 11, Gladys encouraged it. Music was safe. Music kept him home. Music kept him hers. As Elvis got older, that bond never loosened. Even as a teenager, Elvis was a mama's boy and didn't care who knew it. While other boys were trying to seem tough and independent, Elvis would walk down the street holding his mother's hand. Friends teased him. He didn't care. "That's my mama," he'd say simply, as if that explained everything. When fame came. When Elvis exploded into stardom in 1956, Gladys Presley struggled with it. She was proud of her son, of course she was. But she also saw what fame was doing to him. The pressure, the travel, the demands. The way strangers felt entitled to pieces of him. She worried about the girls screaming at him. She worried about the criticism from preachers and parents. She worried about him being on the road, away from home, surrounded by people who wanted something from him. Elvis bought his parents the house on Audubon Drive, then later Graceland. He showered Gladys with gifts. Pink Cadillacs, furs, anything she wanted. But what Gladys wanted most was the thing Elvis couldn't give her, her boy back. The quiet kid who sang in church and stayed close to home. People who knew Gladys said she used to tell friends, "I wish it had never happened. I wish he was just driving a truck again. We were happier then." She meant it. Gladys Presley never wanted fame. She wanted her son safe, home, hers. When Elvis was drafted into the Army in March 1958, Gladys took it hard, as if losing him to the military was losing him forever. Vernon tried to reassure, "It's only 2 years, he'll be fine." But Gladys couldn't shake a feeling of dread. The decline. Then the call comes that every soldier dreads. While Elvis was in basic training at Fort Hood, Texas, Gladys's health began to deteriorate. She'd always struggled with her weight, with anxiety, with what doctors today might recognize as depression. But in 1958, things got worse. She developed hepatitis. Her liver was failing. She started retaining fluid, her body swelling painfully. She had trouble breathing. But she didn't want to worry Elvis, so she minimized it in letters and phone calls. "I'm fine, baby," she'd tell him. "Don't you worry about me." But Vernon saw the truth. By early August, Gladys could barely get out of bed. She was jaundiced, weak, confused. Vernon finally called the doctors, who insisted she be hospitalized immediately. On August 8th, Elvis's 23rd birthday, Gladys entered Methodist Hospital in Memphis. The doctor's diagnosis was grim: acute hepatitis, complicated by alcohol use and other factors. Her liver was failing. She needed rest, treatment, hope. Elvis requested emergency leave from the Army. The request was granted immediately. On August 12th, Elvis flew from Texas to Memphis, still in uniform, desperate to get to his mother. The hospital. What Elvis sees when he arrives at the hospital breaks him completely. When Elvis walked into his mother's hospital room, he barely recognized her. Gladys had always been heavy, but now she was swollen beyond recognition. Her skin was yellow from jaundice, her eyes were glassy, she could barely speak. But when she saw Elvis, she smiled, reached for him. "Satnin," she whispered. Elvis sat by her bed and held her hand. According to people who were there, he couldn't stop crying. "Mama, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna get better and come home." Gladys just smiled at him, as if she knew something he didn't. For 2 days, Elvis barely left her side. He slept in a chair next to her bed. He talked to her constantly, telling her about the army, about his plans for when he got out, about all the things they'd do together. On the evening of August 13th, the doctors told Elvis he should go home and get some rest. Gladys seemed stable. There was nothing more he could do tonight. Elvis didn't want to leave, but his father insisted. "Son, you're exhausted. Go home, sleep. We'll call if anything changes." Reluctantly, Elvis left the hospital and went back to Graceland. He fell into bed around midnight, emotionally and physically drained. At 3:15 a.m. on August 14th, the phone rang. Vernon answered. The hospital was calling. Gladys had suffered a heart attack. She was gone. If you lost a parent young, or if you remember how close some families were in the 1950s, especially mothers and sons, share your memories in the comments. And if these bed stories are giving you a new understanding of Elvis as a person, not just a performer, please subscribe. There's so much more to tell. The breaking. When Vernon told Elvis that his mother was dead, witnesses said Elvis's reaction was unlike anything they'd ever seen. He didn't just cry. He collapsed. He wailed. He beat his fists against the walls. "No, no, no!" Elvis screamed. "Not my mama, not her!" He kept saying he shouldn't have left the hospital. He should have stayed. Maybe if he'd been there, something could have been done. Maybe she held on as long as she could, and when he left, she let go. The guilt was crushing him. At the funeral home, Elvis threw himself on his mother's coffin, sobbing uncontrollably. Security had to pull him away. He kept trying to get back to her, kept saying, "Wake up, Mama, please wake up." At the funeral, something happens that shows how deep his grief really goes. The funeral was held at the Memphis funeral home on August 16th. Thousands of fans lined the streets. Inside, Elvis sat in the front row between his father and his grandmother, shaking with sobs. When it came time for the viewing, Elvis approached the casket. He looked down at his mother, dressed in her favorite lavender gown, looking peaceful, and something in him broke again. He leaned down and whispered things only she could hear. Then he kissed her forehead and said, loud enough for people nearby to hear, "Goodbye, Satnin. I love you. I'll see you again." People who were there said grown men were crying. Even the funeral directors, who'd seen everything, were moved. After the service, Gladys was buried at Forest Hill Cemetery. Elvis stood at the graveside, still in shock, still unable to fully accept that she was gone. The soldier returns. 3 days after his mother's funeral, Elvis had to return to Fort Hood. The Army had given him emergency leave, but it was over. He had to go back. Getting on that plane was one of the hardest things Elvis ever did. He was leaving his mother in the ground. Going back to the Army, going back to a world that expected him to be strong, to be Elvis Presley, when all he wanted was to be a boy who needed his mama. In the months that followed, everyone around Elvis noticed the change. He was quieter, more withdrawn. He'd break down crying at random moments. He'd talk about Gladys constantly, what she would say about things, what she would think, how much he missed her. Friends said he developed an obsession with death. He'd talk about dying young, about joining his mother. He'd read books about spirituality and the afterlife, searching for some assurance that he'd see her again. The guilt never left him. He blamed himself for not being there when she died. He blamed himself for pushing his career so hard that it stressed her out. He blamed himself for everything. And those who knew him say he was never the same man again. The permanent scar. Elvis Presley lived another 19 years after his mother died. He became even more famous. He married, had a daughter, performed for millions, made movies, broke records. But people who knew him before and after Gladys's death said he was never the same. Something fundamental had broken in him that August night. He became more reckless with money, as if nothing mattered. He became more dependent on pills to sleep, to wake up, to perform, to cope. He became lonelier, even surrounded by people. Priscilla Presley later said that Elvis never fully recovered from losing Gladys. He'd talk about her all the time, Priscilla remembered. He kept her room at Graceland exactly as she left it. He'd go in there and sit for hours. On the night Elvis died, August 16, 1977, 19 years to the day after Gladys's funeral, some people couldn't help but notice the date, as if some part of Elvis had been counting down to joining her since the moment she left. At Elvis's funeral, they buried him next to his mother at Forest Hill Cemetery. Later, both were moved to Graceland's meditation garden, where they rest side by side today. The matching graves have a simple truth carved in stone. Gladys Love Presley, 1912 to 1958. Elvis Aaron Presley, 1935 to 1977. Mother and son, together again. Fame couldn't protect Elvis from the one loss he feared most. All the money, all the success, all the love from millions of fans, none of it could save his mother. And when she died, something in Elvis died too. If this story touched you, please share it with anyone who needs to understand that behind every famous person is someone human, someone vulnerable, someone who hurts just like the rest of us. Subscribe for more untold Elvis stories that show the man behind the legend. Because understanding his pain helps us understand his music, his choices, and his heart. And if you still have your mother, call her. Tell her you love her. Elvis would give anything to make that call one more time. Thank you for watching.